Is that somebody talking to me, or is that somebody left their radio on? The program will start in about a minute. We have people wait. Keep on. We got to admit people. Let's bring in Alkanch. And I'm very happy to say that this afternoon I had a meeting with the leadership of the Kenya Friends of Israel. And it looks like we're going to have a nice representation here of people from Kenya. And there's Francis there in the middle. And I think I hear myself back. I'm going to have to silence everyone when I get started. But until then, I'd be very happy if you all consider what kind of questions you'd like to ask, both during the presentation. I am very happy to answer questions, and certainly at the end of the presentation as well. So we're going to keep on admitting everybody here quickly. Okay, somebody is typing, so please silence yourself. I think I'm gonna have to silence everybody. What can I do? 1 second.
Yeah, that's
Let's try to figure out how to do that. And mute all. Allow the people to unmute yourselves. Yes. Okay. I wish I could do this with my teenage children. So, okay, we had about 80 people signing up for today, and people were signing up as I started the program. And Deborah, you're on. I don't see you. I think you're. It's okay, Deborah. I'm going to make you a co-host, so you'll let the people in. Okay. Well, let me make you a co-host, and let's see if that happens. Here. Do you see the list of, if you click on the participants on the bottom, then you just click admit all from time to time. Okay, that worked. Okay, do it again, do it again. Okay, thank you all very much for coming, and I'm very excited to be here. Let me give myself a speaker view. I will repeat from time to time. Oh, hi, Alan, is that your grandson? I'm sorry, only one viewer per registration. He's gonna have to make his own registration. This program of Root Source, for people who are not familiar with Root Source on this program, Root Source is an online platform for Israeli Jews and Christians around the world to engage with each other based on a basis of mutual respect and studying the topics that we both have in common. So Root Source has been around for about 7 years now. We have about a dozen teachers, each of whom have recorded about 50 lessons in topics as various as Jewish history, the book of Proverbs, women in the Bible, Jewish prayer, the Hebrew for beginners, the temple, and mostly, 1 second, I don't have to see this is me. Mostly, we have found that our Christian, oh, this is not good at all. I have to know everybody. Yeah, okay. I know, but it's popping up for me. Our Christian friends are excited to see how the Jewish wisdom that has been both links in the chain for 2,000 and some might say even closer to 4,000 years, and that has developed throughout these years, can give them such an incredible insight to their own Christian identity. So what was really surprising is that throughout all these years, we never had a lesson about what is possibly the most interesting and the most fascinating topic, both in Judaism and in what Christians seem to be interested in. So tonight we are going to fix that, and we are going to give a lesson about the Sabbath. So let me share my screen with you all. Okay, and here is the program. What is the Sabbath rest for the people of God? Now, first of all, I would like somebody who can. Let's try, let me schlep down here a little. I just want to make sure that people, David Goodall, can you raise your hand? Oh, yeah, that's right. Now, do you mind unmuting yourself and saying hello? You think you can do that? That didn't work. It did work.
Hello.
It did work. Very good. Okay,
Hello,
you can please, yes, thank you very much. Please mute yourself again. I just wanted to see that people could unmute themselves and start talking if they want. So while I'm giving this presentation, I am not able to see everybody when they raise their hand. If you have any questions, we're most of us adults here. There's at least one person who doesn't look like they're an adult, but we will behave nicely, hopefully, and we will be able to everybody get their questions in. So what are our expectations for today? Our outline is, first of all, some verses in the Bible, the Old Testament, about Shabbat, the concordance of the word Shabbat in the Old Testament. There are 111 instances of the word Shabbat. We won't review all 111 of them, but I will just show you that. Some classic sayings of the sages. This is perhaps possible to discuss this as the other side of the coin of the written Torah in the Old Testament, in the Bible, and the oral Torah, as many of you might be familiar. Then we'll have a little peek at the halacha, because the idea of Shabbat is a very law-laden topic. So we will just have a little peek at that, and we'll maybe discuss that a little bit. Just before we get to your questions, and again, I'm happy to field questions throughout the program. Just before we get to those questions, we will do a walkthrough of the traditions of the Shabbat day as we celebrate it today. Okay, so without further ado, let us begin. I will just say that this evening's live program is being recorded, and the recording will be presented on Shabbat, the Shabbat just after Tisha B'Av, the 9th day of the month of Av, during the 9th of Av virtual tour of Israel being promoted by the 9th of Av team. That's 9-av.com. You can all look it up right now, and you're totally invited to register for that. Even though my program is what you're participating in now, there are going to be about another dozen or two programs that week that you might be interested in participating in. So I highly encourage you going to 9, that's the digit 9-AV, 9-av.com, C-O-M. Okay, so let us get going. Some verses in the Bible, the Old Testament, about Shabbat. Let me open that up over here. Okay, so this is a source sheet that I prepared today or the other day, and it is a source sheet that I prepared from a very interesting website called Sefaria. So let me get that up there now for you to see it. As you can see, it's called Sefaria. Here we have the same text up here. That's how it's pronounced. And what it basically does is it gives you an opportunity to search through all of the, virtually all of the Jewish sources that exist, not only in the canon of the Bible, in the Tanakh, which is the Hebrew word for the Bible or the Old Testament, but we also have here, let me move this aside, the Mishnah, the Talmud, the Midrash. Let's browse that library. Kabbalah, liturgy, philosophy, and much, 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 much more. Much, 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 much more. Each one of these menu items that you see has thousands of sources in it. Oh my goodness, I believe, are we up to 100? No, we're up to 46. So if they're waiting, you're taking care of it. Okay. Yes, so let's get back to, so what I did is I went to the Tanakh, or more preferably, let me show you what I did over here. I searched the Hebrew word, is this what I did? Shabbat. That over there is the Hebrew word for Shabbat. And it shows me all of these texts that appear in the Jewish sources that have the word Shabbat in them. So Exodus, of course, is from the Bible, Deuteronomy, Leviticus. Mishnah Bava Kama is not from the Bible, etc. So some are and some aren't. I probably searched some other way, and I didn't find 111 sources. I found a bunch fewer. But what I did was I cut them down, and now I'm going to show you these, I would say about 20 or so sources. Somebody has a question? Okay, no, very good. So this might be the, I'm afraid I'm having, Deborah, can you mute everybody? This is, thank you. Okay, so once again, Genesis 1 is the beginning of the Bible, and that is where we are introduced to the Shabbat. What I like to do is read while I'm reading in the Hebrew, on the Hebrew side, and then you can see how different my translation is from the English. We're going to not read all of these sources, but just to quickly point out that after, and this is very basic, I can't believe anybody here do not know this passage in the Bible. God saw what he had created throughout the 6 days of creation, and then he created the possibly most important thing, and that was rest. He rested, everything was completed, and he rested on the seventh day. The word rest in Hebrew is shavat, which is exactly the word Shabbat. So from the very first week of existence, God already had in mind the Shabbat. And we'll get back to that I hope later on when we get to the Lecha Dodi prayer. But for about close to 2,000 years, the Shabbat was not mentioned in the Bible. There are some mentions of it in the oral tradition, but it was before the Ten Commandments they were given that God pointed out that since you the Jews, the Israelites, wanted the manna, the manna in the desert, when they were walking through the desert, escaping from Egypt on their way to the land of Israel, God gave them manna, which rained down from the heavens. Some of you might be familiar that every day the manna went down, but on Shabbat it didn't go down, and therefore they got a double portion of it on Friday, and that's what it's on the sixth day, which is the sixth day of the week, which is Friday, what we call Friday today. They took the double portion so that they would have for Shabbat as well. That was the first hint of Shabbat in the medieval times, not at the beginning of the world, and not at the in our modern time, but just before the Bible, the beginning of the Torah was given on Mount Sinai. And this is a continuation of that. You see, God gave you the Shabbat. That is why on Friday he's giving you a double portion. So everybody should stay in his own place and not leave his place on Shabbat. There is a little bit of rest going on over there. And then finally we get to the other very famous source of the Bible that talks about Shabbat. And that, of course, is the Ten Commandments. While the beginning of the Ten Commandments talks about how God is God and you should have no other gods before me, and don't take the name of God in vain, And the end of the 10 commandments are the commandments between man and his fellow man. Don't murder anybody. Don't commit adultery, that kind of thing. In the beginning, we have what to this day is something in between. Is this a commandment between man and God? Is this a responsibility that we have towards God? Or is this a responsibility that we have towards man, towards his fellow man? And the answer is, of course, both. Because we are, as we discussed until now, commanded to rest on the Sabbath because God rested on the Sabbath. When we rest on the Sabbath, we testify that God created the world. On the other hand, as we see in this passage in the first version of the 10 Commandments in the book of Exodus, that you must let not only yourself rest, you shall do 6 days of work, but on the seventh day is the Sabbath. You shouldn't work, your slaves shouldn't work, and the stranger within your gates shouldn't work. In other words, give them a rest. You were slaves in Egypt, as it says, as we'll see in a moment in Deuteronomy, and you didn't like being slaves. You wanted rest. When you were a slave in Egypt, you worked 7 days straight. So this is the first social commandment, as it were, first social development of making sure that everybody would be able to be equally rested. And that is something we're not just machines, we're not just animals of burden. We are here in order to reflect the identity of the Creator. Just like He rested, similarly, we are commanded to rest and to let others rest as well. Beautiful, beautiful things. Just we could give a whole lesson just on that passage. And again, further on in Exodus, the same idea is repeated. 6 days you should do your work, but on the seventh day you should rest, in order for your cattle to rest and your donkey to rest, and also your slaves, and also the stranger in your midst. This is also very important. The phrase stranger, ger, in the Bible is repeated dozens and dozens of times. It usually refers to a minority in your midst. The Torah, as we understand it, the Jews understand it, was given for a Jewish, I use the word Jewish and Israelite interchangeably. We'll discuss that some other time perhaps, why. But the Jewish state that the Torah, that God envisioned already and promised to Abraham and Isaac and Jacob, that would be established, would probably have some non-Israelites, some non-Jews living there. And the Torah is very, very careful to make sure that we treat them properly. And so the Shabbat is a very important aspect of that good treating of the non-Jew, of the stranger in your midst. Here we're starting to get a little bit more serious. This is not just rest, but it's not how to rest yet. As a matter of fact, it doesn't say that anywhere in the Bible how you're supposed to observe the Sabbath. It just says that if you don't observe it, then you will be punished severely. You should be put to death by your fellow men, fellow Jews. That was the initial idea of God, that people should focus very, very strongly on the sacredness of this day. And if you profaning it, you are really profaning the entire camp, as it were, the entire people of Israel. And another very important verse I have here, verse 16. The children of Israel kept the Shabbat. They made sure to do it for the rest of their generations, and they would do it for all of their generations as an everlasting covenant between me, this is God talking, and the children of Israel. It shall be a sign of that covenant forever. What is the covenant signifying? That 6 days God made the heavens and the earth, and on the seventh day he rested and rested some more. Serious resting. Okay, so we will allow people, first of all, of course, I'm going to encourage people, if they want to right now, to review what we're doing as we're doing it for live. So all you got to do is go to, oh, that's not fair. That's not what I wanted to see. I think this should be like this. I'm in Hebrew. That's not going to work. Yeah. Let's see if that works. Yes, it works. So go to root their source. I'm going to put this into your into the chat, so everybody can go there now if they want. And while I'm here, I will look at other people's chatting also. And second. Okay, there is, oops, wrong place. Here, I'm sorry, is the link. So everybody can go there then. And we are, again, we click through to this, the first link here on the page. So back to here, let me close this again. This passage, I really want to get moving a little bit over here. I've been told that Christians love the written Bible. But you also know the written Bible. So I want to get through the stuff that you might not know, and that is the very fascinating and I believe interesting aspects of the oral tradition that I will get to hopefully in about 5 minutes. So this is an important verse that I don't know how much Christians remember it. Ishimo v'aviv tirau. Each person should fear their mother and their father, and they should keep my Sabbaths. I am the Lord your God. The Jewish tradition says if your parents tell you not to keep the Sabbath, then you should not listen to them. And you should keep the Sabbath anyway, because both you and they are commanded by me to keep the Sabbath. And if you are somewhere where there is a king and a servant, who should you listen to? The servant telling you to do something, or the king himself telling you to do something? So that was just a paraphrasing of some of the ways with what the rabbis have told us about this. Deborah, if there's something interesting in the chat, please tell me, okay? Okay, so somebody wants to know, what does it mean profaning the Sabbath? Let me look at that. That would be Cindy. Okay, to profane the Sabbath, it's like this. As we will see, hopefully, we'll get to it, there are numerous rules that you're supposed to follow on Shabbat or on the Sabbath. Some people might be familiar with the famous one. Obviously, this is a development of technology, but Jews do not. Sabbath observant Jews do not travel in a car on Shabbat. So if you travel on a car, if you drive on a car on Shabbat, then you are, as it were, profaning the Shabbat. You are not observing the Shabbat, but you are the opposite. If anybody got a better word for the opposite of observing something, then that would be better. However, the Bible definitely says, and the Hebrew phrase for it is chilul Shabbat. It is not only not following the rules, but it really is making it profane. In other words, if you take something that is holy and you take it down from its holy level and make it mundane, that is another way of another translation of the word chol or halal, which also means profaning something and also mundaning it, making it just regular. And Shabbat has to be very special. Okay. Oh, I see there are a bunch of questions over here. I'm going to take a break here and go through these questions, see if I can answer them. Christine, we will send everybody the recording. We're gonna post the recording somewhere. It might take a few weeks, unfortunately, or for you people, we'll post it in a secret place because we want people to be able to see this at the 9th of Av gathering. But people who participated here, I think I'll send it to you already tonight. Not sure what Chesban meant. We answered Cindy's question about profaning the Shabbat. Deborah asked, what range of years was the 2,000 years with Shabbat not mentioned in the Torah? The answer to your question, once again, I mentioned before that there were about 2,000 years of biblical history that the Shabbat wasn't mentioned. And what were those 2,000 years? That was from the beginning of the world, according to the Bible, when Adam and Eve were created on the 6th day, and the 7th day was the Shabbat was created and mentioned. But it was about 1,900 years between the creation of the world and the birth of Abraham. Abraham was born according to what we call Anno Creatoria or something like that, from the counting of the creation of the world, in a very easy easy year to remember. He was born in the year 1948 from the creation of the world. So if anybody knows the number 1948, that's easy to remember those two things that happened in that year. In the Gregorian calendar, the state of Israel was established, and in the biblical calendar, counting from the creation of the world, Abraham was born. So a few hundred years after Abraham, about 400 years, 200, 300 years or so after Abraham, Moses took the children of Israel out of Egypt, and we were given the 10 Commandments, etc. So we take 1900, add about 300, we get about 2,200 years. So call me a liar for 200 years. Until a little bit before the 10 Commandments, when the manna, I'm not sure how to pronounce that in English, the manna was given to the children of Israel in the desert by God. There was no mention of Shabbat in the Bible. That's the way it was. Hesban asks, is there a different, I hope I answered your question, Deborah. Hesban asks, is there a difference in spelling between Sabbath and Shabbat? Yes, Sabbath is the English term for the day of rest, the seventh day of rest, while in Hebrew it is Shabbat. It is like that because the Hebrew letters in English, they're SH, which the sound is sh. So it happened through Greek or Roman, or I'm not sure who, that sh sound turned into a s sound, the letter just S. So for example, the name Simon in English, in Hebrew it's Shimon. And the word Shabbat, in English it is Sabbath. And again, the last letters in the Sabbath, the TH, is the way that T in Hebrew used to be pronounced, like a th. But today it's mostly pronounced just with a T. There's really no TH sound in modern Hebrew. So therefore, Shabbat turned into Sabbath or Sabbath. Okay, now Hesban has a second question, very important. Is Sunday Shabbat or Saturday? I guess I have to mention it. The Jewish understanding of the Bible makes no question about it. Shabbat is the seventh day of the week. The week started on the first day, and it is therefore Sunday is the first. What we often call Sunday is the first day of the week. Monday the second, Tuesday the third, etc. Fourth, fifth, sixth, and the seventh day is Shabbat. Today's Saturday. Exactly how it happened that Christians started adopting Sunday as the Sabbath is a question for a different lesson and perhaps for a different teacher. But by all means, hold on to that question, and maybe if you ask me in an email, I'm going to, Deborah, could you put my email, Gidon@RootSource, in the chat? I'm going to allow everybody to ask me any questions that you want by email for after this lesson as well. And the last question that Hezbon asks is, what is the main importance of going to church? The main importance of going to church, in my opinion, is community, because you can pray at home, or you can pray at church, or you can pray in a field, or you can pray in a forest. But if you go to church, or in a Jewish framework, if you go to synagogue, then you are praying with other people that agree with you enough in your focus and faith and belief in God, and together you all want to serve Him. So that's a good thing to go to church for that. People who think it's not a good thing to go to church, you're entitled also, but this is my rodeo, so that's my answer for now. Okay, next question. I see that you guys figured out all the issues of the Bible verses, so we're doing a little bit more as far as the questions are concerned. Francis asks, who determines what is work? According to physics, work equals force times distance. Therefore, if I eat, I am actually working because there is force and distance involved. Excellent question, Francis. The biblical, or perhaps I should more properly say, rabbinic definition of work is not force times distance. But hold on to your question, because we hopefully will get to it in about a half an hour. What is the work that we are prohibited from doing on Shabbat? Cindy asks again, if driving a car is profaning the Shabbat, what about having guests over for Shabbat dinner? Must they walk? What about going to synagogue? I would think walking would be more work than driving in a car. Absolutely. I see that we might have to jump over to the laws, the 39 prohibited activities, in order to understand what is work and what isn't. Let us give a very quick bottom line or top line as far as that is concerned. Creative work, things that you create things with, that is considered the type of work that you are not allowed to do on Shabbat. So when you're working, when you are walking, even though you are not, even though you're walking a long way, and there are certain limits to how long you're about to walk, but you are not creating anything. While when you turn on a car, you are creating the spark that turns on the engine. So that is why, for example, the main thing that's even still on my screen that we were commanded in the Bible not to do on Shabbat is not to ignite a fire. Here it is in Exodus 35:3. Lo tavaru eish b'chol moshavotechem b'yom HaShabbat. Do not kindle a fire everywhere where you live on the Sabbath day. So the rabbis, when cars were invented, they said in order to start the car, you have to burn a little bit of fuel, and that is burning, so we do not drive on a car, for example. Okay. And Angeline, okay, so I hope you got an answer there. Cindy, I heard 7 new messages. I haven't even gotten to them yet. Angeline asks about Yeshua, that he declared that he is the Lord of Shabbat, and he did good works. Are there certain things that we are allowed to do? Beautiful question. And I will certainly get to that. I sure hope later on. So Angeline, hold your question. I do believe we will get to something that will remind us about Yeshua, Jesus, and the Shabbat. Okoch is asking, even in the, or telling us that even in the Gregorian calendar, Sunday is the first day of the week. This is true, but according to some churches, some traditions, it is also the Sabbath. That is the day of rest. That is the day of worship. I'm not sure what, but again, this is I'm explaining the Jewish perspective on the Shabbat, and my understanding of the Christian or Christian's perspectives on Shabbat only goes so far. Okay, we're continuing. I hope that everybody is okay with me answering other people's questions, and if not, then ask your own, and we'll get to it too. Dvora Purdom asks, since you mentioned that the Torah doesn't tell us explicitly how to honor Shabbat, isn't it more a matter of the heart than physical rules? Aren't the rules from rabbinic tradition, but not scripture? Well, look, if everybody would follow the again, I'm telling you what I understand is Jewish understanding here. If somebody tells you you have to do things according to the rules, but they don't tell you what the rules are, then would you have to try to figure out what the rules are? Like the person who told you what the rule, that there are rules, he or she is saying, listen, this is a riddle of sorts. I'm giving you a few hints, but you have to find those rules. Or is he saying, everybody make up rules for themselves and follow the rules that way? So again, if the way that Deborah formulated her question, that the Torah commanded us to honor the Shabbat, but doesn't say how, then yes, to honor Shabbat, everybody can do it themselves and everything goes. But if the Torah tells us, as it did in the Ten Commandments, to lishmor of Shabbat, in other words, to keep Shabbat, to guard Shabbat, to keep from doing things that shouldn't be done on Shabbat, that sounds a little bit more rule-like. And to answer your question, are the rules rabbinic tradition but not scripture? Well, that is the very important, very fundamental question of the Jews' understanding that Moses received from God on Mount Sinai both the scripted scripture, the written Torah, and also a oral direction, an oral Torah that goes hand in hand, as it were, with that written Torah. If the Torah says you should keep the Shabbat as I commanded you, but we don't see how he commanded, then we Jews who accept the tradition of the oral Torah believe that that's because it wasn't written in the Torah in order for it to be given orally. That's the way it is. I do recognize that traditionally a big difference between Christianity and Judaism, besides, of course, Jesus himself, is the rabbinic tradition or the rabbinic laws. What are our feelings in that regard? Okay, so that is, of course, a very interesting topic to discuss and to debate, perhaps. But right now, that's what I'm saying. I am telling you about the Shabbat from a Jewish perspective, from a traditional Jewish perspective, a modern traditional Jewish perspective. When I say modern, means a Jew, a traditional Jew in the 21st century is considering all of the 2,000 or 4,000 years of development of Judaism based on the scripture and the oral Torah as binding and as an exciting testimony of our relationship with our God. What is the difference, asks Shiomara, if I pronounced that correctly. What is the difference between Rosh Chodesh and Shabbat? Okay, Rosh Chodesh means the head of the month. It's the first day of the month. In Judaism, the calendar is a lunar calendar, actually it's a lunar solar calendar, but I'll talk about the lunar aspects of the calendar. You all are familiar with the word month. People in English know the word month. Well, the word month came from the word moon. You'll have to trust me on that. I'm trusting what I heard from others, but if somebody will look it up, I'm pretty sure that is what they'll find. And that is because the moon has a cycle of about 28 to 29 days, 29, 30 days actually. So the lunar calendar, every time the new moon begins, in other words, that first little sliver of the moon that you see, that is when the month starts. It goes through the whole month until the 15th of the month, which is the middle of the month, and that is when you have the full moon. In lunar calendars, the full moon always happens on the 15th day of the month. And then it keeps going down. Then it starts waning until it gets smaller and smaller until it disappears. And then when it appears again, that little bit is the beginning of the month again. So that first day of the month, when you see that little sliver of the moon, that is called Rosh Chodesh, the first day of the month. And that can fall out any day of the week. In fact, it does. The lunar months of the Jewish calendar are usually 29 or 30 days. So they're usually 1 or 2 days after the first day of the previous month. You understand? Let's say the month of Tishrei starts on a Sunday. 29 days after that, it will be a Monday. And so that's the day that the second month starts. And then 29 or 30 days after that, the next day. So you go through the 12 months of the year, going through every single day of the week, having at least one, sometimes usually two, a Rosh Chodesh falling on them. But Shabbat, of course, is always on Shabbat. It's always on the seventh day of the week. God sanctified the seventh day of the week, not the Jewish people. The Jewish people sanctify the months. Why is that? Because we are commanded to notice that it is the first day of the month. Sometimes you can't see that little sliver. So sometimes we don't know if today is the first day of the month or tomorrow is the first day of the month. And so traditionally, according to ancient tradition, ancient rule, then the Sanhedrin, the chief court in Jerusalem, would receive testimony from people, and then they would declare that today is the first day of the month. And that is why the holidays also, that the Passover and Tabernacles that come out on the 15th day of the month, it all depends on when the first day of the month was. So that is why the months, the first days of the months, and the feasts and festivals that are dependent on which day of the month it is, all of these really depend on the great court in Jerusalem deciding when they will be. So as it were, God, even though we know that the feasts are the festivals of the Lord, the feasts of the Lord, but God is, as it were, telling the Jewish people, I'm counting on you to make sure that you tell me when my festivals are. It's a fascinating topic. But in any case, that's a big difference between the Sabbath, the what we call Shabbat Breshit, the Sabbath of creation, which is the seventh day of the week, and any of the holidays, including the first day of the month. That being said, I already just now hinted that the holidays are also called Sabbaths, because the word Sabbath means resting, and we are commanded also on the holidays to rest, a different kind of rest, but a rest nonetheless, and therefore they are also sometimes called Sabbaths, just to confuse you a little bit more. I hope that I answered your question, Chiamara. Hesbon says he's running out of bundles. Okay. The new moon is tomorrow. It is almost tomorrow. We celebrate the new moon in Israel and all over the world amongst Jews. We celebrate it on this Wednesday, which means that the Tuesday night is when we are going to, people who will look to find that sliver of the moon, they will find it probably that night. Tuesday night, the Jewish days start the night before and continue on until nightfall of the day after. Just like the 6 days of creation, it was evening and it was morning, the first day, the second day, the third day. Well, I went through a whole bunch of those questions. I hope you guys didn't mind or you even liked it. And let's here, as I think it was somebody started talking about the new months and the festivals, in the book of Leviticus, where we're in the chapter 23, where we talk about the festivals, the first thing we talk about is Shabbat. You should do no work at all. And this verse got in by mistake. This is not talking about the Sabbath of the week, the seventh day, but it's talking about the sabbatical year. So I'm getting rid of that right now. Bye-bye. And okay, this is talking about the person who gathered wood on the Sabbath. Somebody before asked if we are commanded to just honor the Shabbat. So why everybody can pretty much do what they want. But we see here in the Bible that the Israelites saw one man gathering wood on Shabbat. And so they said, something's wrong here. This is not what you're supposed to do on Shabbat. And they asked Moses and Aaron, what are they supposed to do for him? God answered him, yes, he was de-sanctifying my Shabbat. You should put him to death because he didn't do the right thing on Shabbat. Not a very simple passage in the Bible to understand, and the sages in the Talmud have a little field day exactly what the problem was that he did. But this again, if this is the one way that somebody, we saw already that you're not supposed to, like I pointed out, you're not supposed to ignite a fire on Shabbat. And here we see that you also shouldn't gather wood on Shabbat. So there's something going on over here as far as what is the proper way to observe Shabbat if you are commanded to observe Shabbat. Let me just spend a second on this. Is something very important. I recognize that there are Christians, understandably, that read the entire Bible because they believe that the entire Bible is the Word of God. That includes the New Testament and certainly the Old Testament as well. There are some Christians who know the New Testament, maybe God wrote it once, but it was his first draft, so we can toss it in the garbage. No, I don't believe that, and I don't think that most of my Christian friends believe that either. The entire Bible was sanctified by God. God forbid that we should not think that the Old Testament also is the basis of the New Testament, and they're according to Christian understanding, and therefore it is holy as well. Now, so if you read that New Testament and it's got a whole bunch of commandments, Shabbat, it's not clear what the commandments are. We just say we have to keep the Shabbat. But there's 600 or so other commandments. So who were these commandments? Is it everybody who reads the Bible? I know that a lot of my Christian friends say, listen, I'm reading this. I feel like God is talking to me. So I'm going to try my best to follow these commandments that God seemed to be giving to anybody who accepts upon himself to be a servant of God. It seems to make sense. That is not, however, the traditional Jewish understanding. The traditional Jewish understanding is that God chose a specific people, and that specific people were the ethnic progeny of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob through the 12 tribes. Ultimately, that became the Israelite people, and through various historical reasons, the only ethnic people that are left, according to our understanding and belief, are of those 12 tribes are just the Jews. The Jews, the word Jew comes from the word Judah. Judah was one of the 12 tribes, and in fact, for most of the Bible, after the entry, most of the time that the people of Israel were in the land of Israel after Joshua. Well, I don't know about most, but a strong amount is actually after Solomon, after King Solomon. There, by the way, is another name that started out Shlomo and ended up Salomon. Anyway, the Israelite people split, and we got the northern kingdom and the southern kingdom. The northern kingdom were the 10 tribes, and the southern kingdom was Judah and another tribe or two. The northern kingdom was exiled 100 years before the southern kingdom, and the southern kingdom, which was mostly Judah, they managed to survive while the 10 tribes disappeared. That's what we understand, and therefore we believe that we are the remnants of that Israelite nation. And so we are the ones who were commanded by God through Moses to follow this Torah, to follow this book of commandments. So again, how authoritative are these commandments for somebody who is not considered a member of this ethnic nation? It's a fascinating question that we will talk about perhaps some other time. And I'm sure that how many people we got hanging out here? About 57 people. I don't know that we have 57 different opinions, but I'm sure we have a few. Exactly what the significance of what we are reading here for everybody who is a Christian today. And okay, let's see if we haven't gotten through the 5 books of Moses, and there are a number of mentions in the rest of the Bible, also the prophets and the writings. So here is the second instance of the 10 Commandments in the Bible, in the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 5. Here it says, Shamor et Yom HaShabbat l'Kodesh. I'm sure that many of you have noticed, some of you may not have, that there are 2 versions of the 10 Commandments in the Bible, and this is one of the big differences between them. In the second version, in Dvarim, in Deuteronomy, it says Shamor, which pretty much means to guard. And in the first version, let me sweep up here. Let me see if I can find it quickly. Here it is in the first version. It says, remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. There are a few other differences, but that is the most striking one. And the Jewish tradition says, Zachor v'shamor b'dibur echad. Zachor, which means remember, that's over here. Yeah. And Shamor, down here in Deuteronomy, Shamor, observe, they were both said simultaneously by God in one speech. Now, of course, God is incorporeal. He doesn't have a mouth, he doesn't have a body. He's divine. We can barely understand him. So it's not clear what this actually means, but just as it's hard to understand, how could somebody say observe and remember in one fell swoop? Well, God can do it. God can do anything. We don't understand it, but that is one way of understanding this, even though it is it's more of an ununderstanding than actually an understanding of what that really means. But that is clearly, again, if there's anybody on this call who never noticed that difference, it's a very important difference. I'll also mention something else. Jewish tradition says that shamor means to guard, means to make sure that you don't do something, while zachor means to do something positively, to remember positively. And as we might get to today, time is escaping us. The Jews have these 2 commandments on Shabbat: to do something positive about Shabbat, to remember Shabbat, and to refrain from doing things, and that is to guard Shabbat, to lishmor Shabbat. So the remembering is done through Kiddush, which I hope we'll get to pretty soon. Let us try to squeeze forward over here. If anybody is not familiar with Psalm 92, it is the Psalm of the Sabbath day. In modern times, and frankly, probably since ancient times, The Jews say this psalm every single Shabbat. Sing it just as that it was sung in the temple. We won't go through it now, but it's a beautiful psalm, no question about it. Song of Songs. Now we're coming up to more of the rest of the Bible, not just the Torah, but also, in this case, the writings. In the Shir HaShirim, it says, Lecha dodi neitzei hasada. Come, my beloved, let us go out to the field, and etc. This phrase, Lecha dodi, come, my beloved, is what inspired Rabbi Yisrael Najara, I believe his name was, a rabbi from, I don't remember if it was 1,000 years ago or 500 years ago, but quite a long time ago. He wrote a poem talking about how, come, my beloved, let us receive the Sabbath Queen. And this song we sing every Friday night, just as the sun is going down. Remember, when the sun goes down, that means that a new day is starting, and that new day on Friday night is none other than Shabbat. So we sing about it on Shabbat, and that is based on Shir HaShirim, the Song of Songs, when we, which is a love story, a love song between, we understand, the Jewish people, the Israelite people, and their God. So the Shabbat is a very important part of the relationship between the Jewish people and God. This verse I kept in because it talks about Ner Hashem Nishmat Adam. The soul of man is the candle of the Lord, and that hints towards the Shabbat candles that we light before Shabbat comes in. Maybe we'll get to that. Isaiah talks about how not only the Jewish people should observe the Shabbat, perhaps in some future day, perhaps we are getting to that day today, perhaps. The stranger, the non-Jew, should keep the Shabbat as well, according to Isaiah 56. And those who keep the Shabbat and do not profane it, and hold fast to my covenant, they, I left off the rest of this, they will also never be destroyed, as it says here in verse 5. I will give to them in my house, within my walls, a monument, a name, better than sons of daughters. I will give them an everlasting name, which shall not perish. This is a fascinating portion of the prophet Isaiah. The Jewish people read this portion every fast day. There are about 6 fast days in the Jewish calendar every year, and every afternoon we read this portion, a little bit more of it, quite a bit more of it, in fact. And so we're very, very familiar with it, but most people won't recognize, most Jews won't recognize, wow, we're talking about non-Jews keeping the Shabbat. Again, I'm not here to tell you guys what you should do. I'm not here, I don't even know myself, but there's no question that in order to answer that question, this passage features front and center from Isaiah 56. Here's another beautiful passage that many Jews also say on Shabbat morning when they sanctify the Shabbat. If you refrain from walking on Shabbat in an improper fashion, if you refrain from doing your activities on my holy day, and you call Shabbat a delight, you call it out especially for the Holy One, God, who would be honored, and you also honor it by not doing your normal things, your normal activities, and by not talking a certain way, then you will not only delight in the Shabbat, but you will delight in God. And I, says God, will carry you on all of the mountains of the heights of the earth, and I will give you to eat the inheritance of Jacob your father, for the mouth of the Lord has spoken. This is as we might see in some of the rabbinic traditions, this is a source for some of the things that you shouldn't do on Shabbat. We'll see that later. Okay. All right. With your permission, we go a little bit more through Ezekiel, and here was Jeremiah also. He talks about how if you obey me, declares the Lord, and do not bring in burdens through the gates of the city, you don't carry on the Sabbath day, but hallow the Sabbath day. So here are some more hints about what you shouldn't do on the Shabbat. Again, what the Jews understand they shouldn't do. Ezekiel says, I give them my Sabbaths to serve as a sign between me and them, that you might know that it is I who sanctify them. We knew that already from Moses' time. Make sure that you sanctify my Sabbath, so it'll be a sign between you and me. It's in the same beautiful chapter. Okay? And Nehemiah, only two last portions from Nehemiah, or Nehemiah, Nehemiah, as it is pronounced in Hebrew. Nehemiah brought Jewish people back to the land of Israel after they were exiled about 70 years or so, maybe 80 years or so. And he told them, you should not profane the Shabbat. You should keep the Shabbat holy. And look what you were doing. You're buying and selling. Another thing that you shouldn't do on Shabbat. You're shredding wine in wine presses on Shabbat. You're bringing heaps of grain. You're doing all these things. Please don't do that. Nehemiah was very instrumental in bringing people back to a good relationship with God through behaving the way that he mandated for us. And that is my list of passages in the Bible that have to do with Shabbat. But as I said, we'll go back to here. There is a concordance, which is a list of all the words in the Bible that lists the word Shabbat 111 times. This is my copy of the concordance. It's got about, I think, 1,000 pages in it, as you can see over here, and it's well worn. Where to go? This is the Hebrew frontispiece, and here is the English frontispiece. In some Hebrew books, you have a few pages in English on the English side, but most of it is in Hebrew. Let's see what it says. This is a thesaurus of the language of the Bible, Hebrew and Aramaic roots, words, proper names, phrases, and synonyms, by Avraham Evan Shoshan. It was published in the 80s, I think, maybe a little earlier. Here is an introduction in English on the English side. I'm not going to read it now, but I suggest that you all check out this webpage and try to read it by yourselves. And here is what it looks like inside. Here is the word Shabbat. Before that, this is also a word Shabbat, but this is the verb Shabbat. This is the noun Shabbat, the day of Shabbat. And here is the word that comes before it, Shivra, it happens to be. So as you might be able to see, each one of the verses that the word Shabbat appears is listed, a fraction of it here. So the first time it appears as the word Shabbat is in Exodus. And then the second time is also Exodus, etc. Then I see it's in Deuteronomy. You don't understand this if you don't know Hebrew. I do. But as you can see, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 8, 9, 10. The word Shabbat appears like this. Then this is the word and Shabbat, and this is the Shabbat, and this is and the Shabbat. In other words, these are different formats of the word Shabbat in Hebrew. And so they're listing them and numbering them. On this page, it looks like we got up to 63. Let's go up to the second page. That's the first page. Here is the second page. 64 goes down to, I can barely see it here, but you might be able to see that it goes down to 111. 111 types of different, this is to Shabbat, from Shabbat, the Shabbat of, in its Shabbat, your Shabbat, many Shabbatot, etc. So I just wanted to point out how many times the word Shabbat appears in the Hebrew Bible. I might have asked you all to guess first, but I didn't. Now we're getting to the part that I like most, and hopefully we will not spend more than 20 minutes here, even though I would be astounded if I would succeed in doing that. These are some classic sayings of the sages. Let us open that up. Okay, so the sages talk about Shabbat hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times. But I searched for some aphorisms or some mini stories or some teachings of the sages that talk about the beauty of Shabbat. And some of these things I know from when I was a kid, before I even was observant, and they helped me to love Shabbat and want to observe it as a Jew. So the Shabbat, I'm not going to read all of these. I'm just going to quickly go through the names of these passages, the names that I gave them, but the headings, if you will. That Shabbat is a good gift that God gave to the people of Israel. Shabbat is equal to all the other commandments, as it were. There are a few things that are equal to all the other commandments, but clearly we see today that virtually the definition of an observant Jew is a Jew that observes the Shabbat. And so even if some people might not even know other things that have to do with religion, if they keep Shabbat, then they are most of the way there. One should start early on Friday to prepare for Shabbat. The people of Israel love Shabbat. Isn't that what I said? Hopefully, maybe we'll review that as well. Angels accompany you home on Shabbat. Everything should be different on Shabbat. If you delight in Shabbat, you will get unlimited reward. Here's an interesting one. Income is decided up front for the year. In other words, God decides, according to this tradition, how much you're going to make this year. Are you going to make $10 million? Are you going to make $1 million? Are you going to make $50? God has already made the decision, and so you have to work a little. You have to put in your effort, but don't think that it's your effort that's making you succeed in getting your payment. It is God who already decided how much you're going to get, except for Shabbat. If you decide to really pay a lot for Shabbat, then God will make sure that he will tack that on to the amount that he decided that you were going to get. So it's a fascinating idea. I don't think about it much, but I'm familiar with it, so I mentioned it here. The next source that I brought was called Yosef Mokir Shabbat. In English, that's called Joseph the Shabbat cherisher, somebody who cherishes Shabbat, who loves Shabbat. And there's a beautiful story that maybe we'll get to in a moment. The spice of Shabbat. We'll see if we'll get to that also. I'll keep that as a quiet. Shabbat is 1/60th of the world to come. There are a few things the sages say that are 1/60th of something bigger. Like, for example, they say that sleep is 1/60th of death. You're tasting death when you go to sleep. Luckily, it's only 1/60th, so you manage to wake up afterwards. And similarly, Shabbat is 1/60th of the world to come. Sometimes I have such a beautiful Shabbat, I wonder if it's really 1/60th or if it is the world to come itself. Now, sleep on Shabbat is delight. That is why the tradition is that we sleep also on Shabbat. Of course, it says that we should rest on Shabbat. So exactly what is resting? It is also resting from activities, creative work, but it's also resting. The simple meaning of it, get into bed, take a nap. Here's something that y'all might be a little bit surprised to find on a Jewish source sheet about Shabbat. The Sabbath was made for man, not man for the Sabbath. If anybody is familiar with that, you can raise your hand. I certainly am. I know that some of the verses and passages that I'm familiar with from the New Testament quotes this. And some might think that Yeshua himself, Jesus himself, made this up. Now, I'm not sure when the sage who mentioned this, as we will see, I hope, in the next few minutes, when he made it up or when he heard of it, or who he heard it from, one generation before, maybe a generation before and before. But we'll definitely take a look at that and see how the Talmud, the Jewish sages, understand that. Let's see if anybody has some interesting questions before I keep going. One second. I think we were into this. So somebody asked, first of all, do you think that the world is going through a Shabbat? I would say no, but that is based on a Jewish tradition, and only on that Jewish tradition. The Jewish tradition says that there are 6,000 years, and then in the 7,000th year would be like the Shabbat. We say that there are 6,000 years. 1,000 years is parallel to a day, and that is because maybe somebody can remember where it says in the Psalms for Kiyom etmol Ki'elef shanim Kiyom etmol ki'avor, because 1,000 years is like one day in your eyes. Let's see if any Psalm 90. I'll believe you on that. Shall we pick it up here to take a peek at it? Why not? Psalm 90. Let's take a quick look if we can find it. The NIV, what the heck? 1,000, here it is, verse 4 or 5. 1,000 years in your sight are like a day that has just gone by. So that means that 1,000 years is like one day. So 6,000 years is like 6 days, and the 7,000th year is the Shabbat. This is a Jewish tradition. I didn't quote it in my source sheet, but I'm telling you it off by heart. Now I happen to know that the Christian tradition also has a tradition of 1,000 years, sort of like Shabbat. I believe that is the 1,000-year rule of Jesus, isn't it? Something like that. David, you're the only person. David Goodall's the only person I see. So please nod if I'm saying something that you're familiar with. I find it fascinating that both of these traditions originated more or less the same time. The Christians took them in one direction. The Jews obviously took them in a different direction. But you can see that they both have the same root. I'll leave that there. Clint seems to have asked me a private question. I don't know if he means to ask it to everybody for me to answer. I have a feeling it does, but maybe we'll go into it. So somebody suggested that should Rosh Chodesh be treated as a Sabbath? Again, from the Jewish perspective, definitely not. There are a few minimal rituals that are carried out on the day of Rosh Chodesh, on the first day of the month, most having to do with the prayer liturgy, but you can work as a regular day on the first day of the month on Rosh Chodesh. So Moto asked, can you also say that Shabbat is in heaven, like resting after time in earth? Just a thought that came. I'm not sure I understood your question. Yes, if Shabbat is 1/60th of heaven, then Shabbat is sort of like in heaven. And so what is in heaven is sort of like Shabbat. Friends, I don't know what goes off in heaven. Let's see what we can do in this earth, the best that we can do. So Clinton asks about the sacrifices. Yes, and so the sacrifices were work, and maybe Clint is hinting at something that he knows, and that we will perhaps jump to now. The let me stop sharing for a moment. The sages understood or deduced that which is prohibited on Shabbat is exactly those activities which were required in the temple or in the Mishkan, in the what's it called, Mishkan, the tabernacle. And now I will show you that list, I hope. Let's see. Back to my table over here. If we peek at the halachot of Shabbat, let's see. Come on. Here, milachot. No, he's not giving over here. Let me look it up quickly over here. 39 milachot. Here are the 39 milachot in Wikipedia, my favorite. Milachot are types of work. Rabbinically, these are the 39 categories of activity which Jewish law defines as being prohibited by biblical law on Shabbat. And here they are. The 39, I'm afraid that I haven't started sharing my screen. Let me do that 1 second. Here. Whoa. So the 39, again, here are the 39 milachot in Wikipedia. And they have 4 different categories. The first is the making of bread. What did you have to do until you finally came out with a nice loaf of bread? You had to plant, then you had to plow, then reap, then gather, thresh, winnow, sort, dissect, sift, knead, and finally cook or bake. Each one of these is what we call an av melacha, a principle of working, and things that are similar to them are similarly prohibited on Shabbat. Then you have the garments. Ultimately, you would make a garment by sewing it. So first, you'd have to cut off the wool of the sheep. You'd have to launder it. You'd have to comb it, dye it, spin it, warp it, make 2 loops, then weave it, and then separate 2 threads, and then tie it and untie it and sew it and tear it. And then there's also the hides. In order to write something down, you need to prepare the paper. In the biblical times, there was no paper. Were hides. You would write on hides, which are the skins of animals. So trapping, to kill it, to skin it, to cure it, to smooth it, to score it, whatever that means, and ultimately to cut it. These are the things that you're not allowed to do. And in order to construct, there are various things that you need to do: to write and to erase, to construct and to demolish, to light a fire and extinguish a fire, to fine-tune something, and to transfer things between 2 domains. These are the 39 types of commandments that we are not allowed to do on Shabbat. The I would say hobby, or the not pastime, but a major aspect of rabbinic law is how do we translate these ancient and specific categories of activities into things that we are familiar with today. I mentioned before how driving a car, or actually putting your key into the ignition, is similar to lighting a fire, which is also prohibited. Let's say, I don't know what, cooking, for example. You're not allowed to cook on Shabbat. So there were Karaites, and there still are today, that say, it says in the Bible what I'm allowed to do, what I'm not allowed to do. So I can't put on fire on Shabbat, so I won't cook either. I can't cook if I have no fire. The Jews say, yes, the rabbinic Jews say, we try to prepare our food before Shabbat. We can't cook on Shabbat, but we can keep it warm. We cannot light a fire on Shabbat, but we can keep a fire lit on Shabbat. Again, this is just a taste of Shabbat, and so I can't really go too much deep into that, but I just want to show you some of these 39, the famous 39 melachot, the 39 activities that are famous for what we're not supposed to do on Shabbat. Is somebody trying to catch my attention? Okay, I don't think so. So yes, so again, to revisit Clint's question, sacrifices were work. All of these things, cleaning up after, slaughtering the animal, these were exactly the things that were done in the tabernacle and in the temple, even on Shabbat. But outside of the temple, we were prohibited of doing them. Okay, so Don is asking, could the world then be approaching that new day? As night approaches, it gets darker. So the increasing spiritual darkness. Beautiful thought, Don. And I would like to introduce you to a very famous rabbi in rabbinic circles. His name was Rabbi Eliyahu Elijah Kramer, but he was known as the Gra, the Gaon Rabbeinu Eliyahu. The Gaon is a genius times 15 to the power of 10. Rabbi Eliyahu, and he lived in a place called Vilna. So I'll quickly show you Gaon Vilna. Whoops, there it is, the Gaon of Vilna Gaon, and we'll probably see him in Wikipedia also. The Vilna Gaon lived about 200 years ago, 1797, that's about 230 years ago, 250 years ago. And he was the initiator of understanding how we are coming closer to the Messianic times, to the end of days. So a lot of people, based on some of his thoughts, I'll stop sharing for a moment, based on some of this genius's thoughts, tried to calculate how we're getting closer to the end of times. So Don, maybe you are a student of that rabbi as well. Okay, let us get back to where we once belonged. Some of the classic sayings of the sages. Let's read some of them just and soak them in. Let me share my screen again. The verse states, "For I am the God who sanctifies you." It doesn't say here where that verse is, but trust me. That means that the Holy One said to Moses, "I have a good gift in my treasure house. Shabbat is its name. I seek to give it to Israel." As I said, that is a beautiful gift. Here is what we said about how the Torah, somebody who keeps the Shabbat, it's as if he kept the whole Torah, and somebody who didn't keep Shabbat, it's if he didn't keep all the Torah. Here's how we said a person should, and this we follow till this day. A person should rise early on Friday to prepare for Shabbat. As it says, "And it shall be on the sixth day, they will prepare that which they have brought." That was with the manna on Exodus 16:15. That indicated that the children of Israel would begin preparing for food immediately in the morning, already on Friday. And I would say that, and I don't remember if I brought this passage, but the Hillel and Shammai also talked about these. You might have heard of the famous Rabbi Hillel. He also talked about how not only on Friday did he prepare for Shabbat, but if he would find a beautiful piece of meat in the market on Sunday, he would say, "Wow, I like this piece of meat. This is going to be for Shabbat." He put it into his refrigerator and he waited for Shabbat. And if on Monday he found a better piece of meat, he said, "You know what, this will be for Shabbat." Then he ate that piece of meat. He always was keeping the best for Shabbat. Beautiful. This is a beautiful story about Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai and his son Rabbi Elazar. As the sun was sitting on Shabbat Eve, they saw an elderly man who was holding 2 bundles of myrtle branches and running just before Shabbat came in. They said to him, why do you have those 2 things? He says, in honor of Shabbat. He says, what do you need 2 for? 1 is enough. He said, 1 is for remember the holy day to keep it holy, the Shabbat day, and 1 is for observe the Shabbat, Zachor and Shamor. And so Rabbi Shimon said to his son, see how beloved the mitzvot, the commandments are to Israel. And their minds were put to ease. This is part of a previous story that Rabbi Shimon and his son Elazar were very angry at how the Jewish people weren't religious enough. But when he saw even the simple people were so much in love with God and with this beautiful gift that God gave them, then their minds were put at ease. This is another tradition that we think of, and I'll explain how we think of it even to this day. 2 ministering angels accompany a person on Shabbat evening from the synagogue on his way home, a good one and an evil one. When he reaches home and he finds the lamp is burning nicely, it's light in the house, the table is set, the beds are made, the house is clean, the good angel says, may it be this way every Shabbat. And the evil angel has to say, Amen. But if a person comes home and the house is not prepared nicely, then the evil one says, may it be this way every Shabbat, and the good one has to say, Amen. So this tradition of 2 angels accompanying you home from the synagogue on Shabbat is one that we hear and echo in the song that we sing on Friday night, Shalom Aleichem Malachei Asharet. Welcome, hello to you, you ministering angels. Maybe if I get a chance, it's getting a little bit late, I will play that song perhaps. Find it on YouTube. Okay, this we mentioned that verse from Isaiah. If you keep Shabbat properly and you honor it, then you will delight. And if you honor it by not going your way, but going according, but different, you should honor it that your dress should not, on Shabbat, should not be how you dress during the week. You go your way, you're walking on Shabbat should not be the way you walk during the week. The affairs that you do on Shabbat should not be the affairs that you speak about during the week, or vice versa. Your speech on Shabbat should not be like your speech during the week. There were some rabbis who therefore said on Shabbat, even though I live abroad and I'm speaking, I don't know, Polish or Russian or German or Yiddish throughout the week, on Shabbat I will only speak the holy language, the holy tongue, Hebrew, Ivrit. Nowadays I speak Hebrew all week long. All week long is like a Shabbat for me. It's a long one. With your permission, I will skip it. If you read it and have any questions about it, by all means, please email me. Here's what I talked about, how a person's entire livelihood is allocated to him during the period from Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. The first 10 days of the year is when God sits in judgment and decides how much each person is going to make that year, except for Shabbat and festivals and learning Torah. If you spend more on it, God will give you more, and if you spend less on it, God will give you less. Okay, that's what it says. And here's the famous story of Yosef Mokir Shabbat. I don't know if any of you know the story, but it's a very, very famous story that all the kids learn in kindergarten here in Israel. The Gemara relates, the Talmud tells the story of Yosef Mokir Shabbat. Mokir means cherished. He loved the Shabbat. There was a Gentile in his neighborhood who was very rich. The astrologers told that Gentile, Yosef, the one who loves Shabbat, he's going to inherit all of your richness. So the Gentile was very afraid. So he went and he sold all of his property and he bought a single, very expensive pearl, and he placed it in his hat. All of his earthly goods were now concentrated. He put all of his eggs in one basket, as it were, in that one pearl. He went across the river in a ferry. The wind blew his hat and cast it into the water, and a fish swallowed it. So you can be sure that this Gentile, who is not named in this story here, was besides himself. Oh my gosh, there go all of my riches. I was so rich, now I've got nothing. He didn't see that a fish ate it. He was watching his hat disappear. He couldn't see the pearl. It plummeted in the river. Anyway, the fish was finally caught and removed from the water and was brought to the shore close to Shabbat. The fisherman said, "Who would buy a fish at a time like this? It's already a minute before Shabbat. Nobody's going to buy any more fish. We're not going to be able to sell this at all." So the townspeople told him, "Just go and bring it to Yosef Mokir Shabbat, the guy who loves Shabbat. He will buy more and more food. He doesn't care. If it's for Shabbat, he'll have a table full of food." So they brought it to him, and so he purchased it, and so he started preparing it for Shabbat. He ripped it open, and he found the pearl inside it. That was the pearl that the astrologer said that this rich person ultimately would give all of his worldly riches to this Yosef who loves Shabbat. And that old man who met him, he saw that Passof, he had 13 vessels filled with gold and dinars. It was worth millions. So the elderly man who encountered him said, "One who lends to Shabbat, Shabbat repays him." This is a story that is related to the story, to what we talked about before, that if you honor Shabbat by spending money on the meals for Shabbat, by inviting guests, by inviting poor people to your home on Shabbat, then God will most surely, according to this belief, repay you for that. This is also a beautiful idea. The Roman emperor said to Rabbi Yoshua ben Hanania, "Why does the fragrance of a cooked Shabbat dish smell so good?" He said, "Because we have a certain spice. It's called Shabbat, which we place in the cooked dishes, and it smells good." So the emperor said, "So give me some of that." He said, if you keep Shabbat, if you observe Shabbat, then you'll have that spice. But if you don't observe it, you won't be able to get it. Here's where I said that Shabbat is 1/60th of the world to come. Now I mentioned that sleep on a Shabbat is a delight. Look what it has over here. If anybody knows Hebrew, people who don't, you have a few days to learn. Sheina means sleep. Bishabbat means on Shabbat. Tanug means a delight. But look at the first letters of these words. Sheina, Bishabbat, Tanug. Shin, Bet, Tav is Shabbat. The acrostic, if you were, there's another word for it also, but the for Shabbat, what is Shabbat? What are the three letters of Shabbat? If you expand them, what do they mean? Sheina b'Shabbat tanug. It is a delight to sleep on Shabbat, as I experienced just the other day. Tov, I almost left out the last important one. Rabbi Yossi, the son of Rabbi Yehuda, says that this is a little bit difficult because it's a Talmudic reasoning. It says, keep my Shabbatot. It says that in Exodus 31. One might think that this applies to everyone in all circumstances. But the verse says, "But you shall keep my Shabbatot." And the word "but" qualifies and restricts. This implies that there are circumstances where one must keep Shabbat, but there are circumstances where one must desecrate it. One must not keep Shabbat. Those circumstances are in order to save a life. And Rabbi Yonatan, the son of Yosef, Jonathan, the son of Joseph, said that is what is stated in 31, because it is sacred to you. It, meaning Shabbat, is holy to you. Why do we have the word "to you"? It implies that Shabbat is given to you, into your hands. And you are not given into the hands of Shabbat, that you should die on account of Shabbat. Just the opposite. If there is something life-threatening on Shabbat, the Shabbat is pushed aside because life is more important than Shabbat. Okay? Just anybody remember where the verse or where one of the instances, I believe it appears in more than just one of the Gospels, where Jesus talked about this same phrase, that Shabbat is not in charge of the man, but the man or the son of man is on charge of the Shabbat or something like that. Come on, everybody. If anybody's left, please help me out here and give me that source in the New Testament. We'll wait for you. Or no, we won't wait for you. We're going to go back. So we already saw some of those halachot, but let me take another peek at it. These are, it's sort of a Wikipedia, especially for Jewish law. The link is here in rootsource/blog/Shabbat. Shabbat and the category. Let's open up the next one also. So on Shabbat, there are probably 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 20, 30. There's about 100 entries here on this page. It's in alphabetical order. So yes, all of these questions, all of these issues are things that we think about on Shabbat. How should we brush our teeth on Shabbat? What about electricity on Shabbat? What about reading on Shabbat? Mail on Shabbat? All infants on Shabbat? Hundreds and hundreds of laws about Shabbat that we have to do our best to follow and when we do that. Let's see if somebody okay. So Margarita asks, if life is more important than Shabbat, then do medical workers work on the Sabbath? Firemen and policemen for that matter as well? The answer is yes. It's not Orthodox doctors and Orthodox firemen will work in order to save people's lives. No question about it. Policemen, it's a different question because most of the work of policemen is not in order to save lives, but to give out tickets. So that's not as simple. But certainly soldiers, Margarita, I don't think you live in Israel. In Israel, we have mandatory conscription. Every young man, almost every young man and woman is in the army between the ages of 18 and 21. And many of them spend Shabbat in the army because you never know when you're going to need somebody. So the laws of what you're allowed to do on Shabbat and what you're not allowed to do on Shabbat as a soldier in peacetime, not in the heat of the battle, but in peacetime, there are different laws for a soldier than there are for a regular civilian. That's very, very true. And yes, so medical workers, their lives look somewhat different than their neighbor that sits right next to them in the synagogue. For example, I would not carry around a phone on Shabbat. A phone has something to do with electricity. So there we go again a little bit regarding the fire. So we don't use a phone on Shabbat, but a volunteer ambulance driver, for example, would carry his phone on Shabbat. And if he gets a call or a beeper, if he gets a call, he runs out and he goes, takes care of what he has to do. So that is a very good question, Margarita. I hope I answered it. And thank you, Hiomara. Mark 27 says, Yoshua said, Shabbat was made for mankind, not mankind for Shabbat. I wonder what translation that is. I remember a different translation, not mankind, but man. It's arguable what the difference is. So let me grab this text. Everybody can see it, but I want to compare it a little bit. Well, let's look up Mark 2:27 in what's it called? The Bible Hub. Oops, why am I in Hebrew all the time? Bible Hub. We said it was Mark 2:27, you said? Mark, we said, right? Mark, where are you? There we are. 2:27. Let's see what he says over here. Let me move this to the side so I can see things a little bit better. The Sabbath was made for man, not man for the Sabbath. The Sabbath was made to meet the needs of people and not the people to meet the requirements of Sabbath. That kind of thing. So I have a question for you. If Jesus said the Sabbath was made for man, not man for the Sabbath, did he mean the Sabbath is meaningless? The Sabbath is worthless? There's no value at all in Shabbat? Or did he mean that the Sabbath was made for man, but except for dire circumstances, man should certainly honor and respect the Sabbath? I think that's what he's saying here very clearly. He's not saying when the people before it is in a little bit of context. He went and ate some of the consecrated bread. Oh, this is from. He gave some to his companions as well. Then Jesus told them the Sabbath was made for man, not man for the Sabbath. Therefore, the Son of Man is Lord over the Sabbath. That's a little bit the next part. But he's basically saying, if we didn't have a problem, then of course we would not break the Sabbath. But we have an issue that we need to save our lives, and that is why we, as it were, break the Sabbath. But by breaking it and saving our lives, we are actually able to keep Sabbaths for many years forward. And Jonathan, for example, that says that Jesus observed and loved the Shabbat. I don't know where you got that from. I'm not saying that he didn't, but I like, when you see something like that, I like to see a source. So Jonathan or Moto, if you can bring me a verse in the New Testament where it says that Jesus kept the Shabbat, I'd love to read it and share it with everybody here. Okay, we won't get too much into the different Gospels with all your permission. Let us go back and finally get to a walk through the traditions of the Sabbath day. This is what we do. It's almost all the beautiful and some less beautiful, but all the things that I and my family and my friends and neighbors experience every Shabbat. First of all, we have preparation on Friday, even the whole week, as I mentioned. We prepare, we bathe, we change clothes, and that is a nice picture over here of preparation day. Somebody is starting to bake, they're cooking, they're cleaning, they're sweeping up, washing dishes, all preparing so that Shabbat will be a beautiful day when it comes in. Just prior to Shabbat, we light candles. It is more traditional that the women light the candles. Here's a nice picture of, looks like a mother, her older daughter, and her little baby daughter. They're covering their eyes because they light the candles and then say the blessing on the candles, and then open their eyes to see the light of the candles. And while their eyes are covered, they're saying the blessing and maybe putting in a silent prayer for their families as well. A very beautiful tradition, I think, that is known worldwide amongst Jews. Then we go to the synagogue. Here's a nice little picture of a little boy walking with his father to the synagogue. Somebody wondered, well, isn't it a lot more work to walk than it is to take an easy drive? And the answer is yes, but look at this. It's more exertion. You lose more calories. Don't tell me that you burn more calories and therefore maybe it should be prohibited because you're not allowed to burn fire on Shabbat. That's fire, not allowed to burn, but calories evidently yes. But look at how beautiful this is. This young man, this father is walking with his young son, probably, I would say on the average 15-minute walk to the synagogue. And all the way there and all the way back, they are walking. It is quality time. That is Shabbat is an island of time in the week, and it is a quality time for the family. Very beautiful. At synagogue, we sing Kabbalat Shabbat, which is a medley and a series of about 5 Psalms from the book of Psalms. If we look up Kabbalat Shabbat, then I'm sure that we will find which Psalms they are. Maybe if somebody knows, they can put it here in the chat. Then we sing the song Lecha Dodi, Come My Beloved, as I mentioned before, which is based on that verse in the book, The Song of Songs. And the rabbi's sermon, here, somebody maybe got it for me. 1 second. Whoop, not me. Hello. Yes, Don asks, are the candles lit prior to Shabbat? Absolutely. You're not allowed to light candles on Shabbat. But by lighting candles just before Shabbat, you accomplish 2 things. Number 1, you put a border between the mundane weekday where you are allowed to light a Shabbat, and once you're done lighting those Shabbat candles, it's Shabbat. You're not allowed to light, you're not even allowed to touch these candles anymore. You're not allowed to move them, you're not allowed to extinguish them. So that is one thing that you accomplish. You're saying, this is the border of Shabbat. The candles are the border of Shabbat. Another thing that you do is that the candles are usually nowadays somewhat symbolic, but in the old days before electricity, you lit Shabbat candles so that you would have light at your Friday night dinner. And so it accomplished both of those things. Thank you very much. Here are 2 pictures. This is Rabbi Shlomo. It's a small picture that I stole from the internet. Rabbi Shlomo Karlebach, if anybody has ever heard from him, heard of him, he is like the modern sweet singer of Israel. He wrote about 1,000 Jewish songs, and if you look him up on Wikipedia, then you will see, and not only on Wikipedia, all over the internet, Google, you will find perhaps some of the beautiful songs that he wrote. I will write his name in over here. Right? For people to look him up afterwards. I'll make this smaller again and go back to where we're up to. When we get home, after then we have the meal, but it starts out singing Shalom Aleichem Malachei Ashereit, welcoming you, those ministering angels that we mentioned earlier before. We sing the Woman of Valor song to our wives, and also our wives. Some of our wives also participate in the singing, thinking that this is really, well, whatever. You can figure what is the meaning of that Woman of Valor chapter in the end of Proverbs. I believe it's Proverbs 31. If not the wife of the family. I don't know, maybe somebody can come up with something offhand. I'm getting a little tired over here. Then we say Kiddush, which is the sanctifying of the day at the meal. We also bless our children, the Aaronic blessing. May God keep you and keep you safe, or whatever it is. Bless you and keep you, etc. Then we wash our hands before we eat the bread. Maybe we'll do a little something, a walkthrough more specifically on a Sabbath meal. Here's a picture of a boy lighting the candles, but the table is set for a Shabbat meal in this family. This here is the goblet for the wine, and here is the challah bread, which is a tasty, often braided loaf that's special for Shabbat. Thank you, Chiomara. We'll get back to that later. The menu on Shabbat can be pretty much anything, but a traditional menu will include soup, usually chicken soup. There will be some fish at the beginning, maybe gefilte fish. If you don't know what gefilte fish is, then Let me show you where you can look it up. Gefilte fish, it means stuffed fish, but you can look that up on Wikipedia, I'm sure. There are numerous songs that we like to sing on Shabbat at the meal. And finally, when the meal is over, that was a very short meal just now, we sing the grace after meals, and we sing one of the songs of ascents. The song of ascents, when God returned his people to Zion, we were as dreamers. Every meal on Shabbat, we remember Zion. I think that's something very beautiful. Then we go to sleep. In the morning, we wake up, we go to the synagogue. We hear the Torah being read. Then we have the second meal when we come home from synagogue. A very famous staple, not everybody eats it, but a very famous staple of a Shabbat meal is called cholent. Exactly what the etymology of that word is, it's not clear. Some people say that it comes from chaude, which is French for hot. And these all look so delicious to me. I just took a picture of all of them. Here's Jewish slow-cooked stew. It's got beans in it. It's got meat in it. These are eggs in the shell. You take them out, they become brown like these eggs. And potatoes, and maybe some carrots, and different kind of meat. Sometimes it's chicken, sometimes it's other kinds of meat, everything. Yummy, yummy, yummy. Akash is asking a good question. If you're not allowed to have a phone or a camera, how were these pictures taken? The answer is all of these pictures were staged and not taken on Shabbat. Okay, but I used them in order to show you. Now here, for example, it says here Kabbalat Shabbat, but there would not be microphones on Shabbat. In Orthodox synagogues, we do not use microphones on Shabbat. If you have a gigantic synagogue with 1,000 people in it, somehow the people in the end row manage to hear the cantor as well. After lunch, we do some resting. Here's a nice little picture that I found of a baby resting on the Bible. So the children of Israel shall guard the Shabbat throughout his generations and everlasting covenant. It's a very, this is probably a Christian person made this image, but I think it's a very beautiful image. It reminds us that we are responsible for the upcoming generations, and we should hope that they feel comfortable resting and basing themselves on a good foundation of God's Bible. Towards the end of the day, we have Havdalah. The word Havdalah means differentiation, and lo and behold, we have a candle at the beginning of the day that differentiates between Friday and Saturday, and then at the end of Saturday night, once it's dark outside, we have a candle that differentiates between Saturday and Sunday, back to the grind, back to the hamster wheel. We can't wait until it's Shabbat again. That is the end of what I prepared over here. There are some nice videos that I found, are also introductions to Shabbat. I think I have 4 over here. I invite you to go to this page again and to review it here. I'll give you the page again where we were from. And if anybody has any more questions, then we've got about 8 minutes to answer them. You can start typing your questions in the group chat. I will just encourage everybody who is not yet a member of Root Source, and you can do that now. Go to Root Source. That's, here it is, Root Source. I'll give you the link. And please follow the instructions to join us for free so you can sign up for your free weekly newsletter and ultimately be able to access hundreds and hundreds of teachings like the one that we just were happy to give just now. Okay, so I do know that anybody in my time zone, we might have somebody else from Israel here. We have quite a few people from Africa that is more or less the same time zone. But the people in the United States, it's about noon or maybe 2 o'clock by them. So you guys aren't falling off your feet. I am. So if there's no more questions, we will hold it here. Thank you very much for thanking me. I will try to unmute you now. First of all, I'll stop sharing the screen, and we'll go back to the gallery, and we will unmute everybody. How we got to do that? Here are the participants. Can we unmute all? No, but everybody can unmute themselves and say Shabbat Shalom. I believe in saying Shabbat Shalom all throughout the week because that gives you a little feeling of Shabbat.
Okay, very good, Shabbat.
Shalom.
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 Thank you very much, everybody.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. That was a beautiful cacophony.
Yeah. Shabbat Shalom.
Let me mute everybody again.
Shabbat Shalom, Jacinta.
And I'm still talking. Thank you very, very much. And I will. I hope that we will all be able to join ourselves together in Shabbat in the world to come. And before that, even I invite you all to my home for Shabbat. When you're ever in Israel, I live near Hebron, and I hope that you will be able to enjoy part of the Shabbat with me. Keisha asks, one second. Keisha asks, is it possible to get a copy of the Mishnah as well as that of the Concordance of the Bible? For the Concordance, I can't hear you. If somebody is talking, please type it in instead of talking it. The copy of the Mishnah, that is that, let me share the screen here again. That is that source that I showed you before, Sefaria.org. That is the, or Sefaria.org. That is the site. And this is where you can find a whole bunch of sources. Here's Mishnah, for example. Here are the different tractates of the Mishnah. If you want to learn about Shabbat, if you want to learn about Shabbat, then you click here. You find the Mishnah of Shabbat. There are 24 chapters of Shabbat, of the Mishnah. Each one has an average of 10 Mishnayot, 10 teachings. So you have about 240 teachings just in Shabbat, and we have about 60 tractates. So we're talking about 6,000 or so Mishnayot. You got a lot to go over there. Psalm 23:2, is that related to Shabbat? Let's see. Let me look it up over here while I'm at it. Let's close, please. That would be the Tanakh. Psalms 23, not 27. I think we can go back down like this quickly. 23 is Adonai Ro'i lo yachsar. The Lord is my shepherd, I lack nothing. That is a beautiful thought. Moto asks, does this have something to do with the Shabbat? I don't know, but it sure sounds like it does. So we'll leave it on that. This psalm, it is traditional to sing towards the end of Shabbat. We spent 25 hours. Basking in God's love and light. None of the outside world is interfering with us, but soon it's time to go back to the outside, as it were, the real world. We're asking God to try to let us lay down on places of restful waters throughout the rest of our lives as well. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, Toda Rabah. I hope you managed to copy my email address. I'll do that again right for you over here. roottheirsource.com. Didn't make a mistake. Please grab that and grab the other links that we had also about signing up for Root Source, for learning at Safaria.org, and for reviewing this this page that we had again. I'll open it up again. Click it over here, and it opens up the blog post about Shabbat. What is the Shabbat rest for the people of God? Toda rabah, Laila Tov, thank you very much. Good night and good day for the people on the other side of the world. And we'll see you around on Root Source. Thank you very much. Shalom, shalom.
Toda rabah, shalom, shalom.